The amber glow of the copper kettle cast long shadows across worn wooden tables, while soft blue neon from the street outside painted geometric patterns on the exposed brick walls. I nursed my third gin and tonic, contemplating whether my friend's trivia obsession was endearing or a sign I needed better friends. The mild October air drifted through open windows, carrying the scent of expensive cologne and poor life choices. I'd chosen my outfit carefully tonight, a black silk blouse that hugged my curves without screaming desperation, paired with dark jeans that made my legs look endless. My brown hair fell in waves past my shoulders, and I could feel it catching the ambient light every time I moved. Next question, the trivia host announced with the enthusiasm of someone who'd given up on life but still needed to pay rent. What 1990s romantic comedy features a bookshop owner falling for a corporate executive? My friends erupted into their usual animated chaos, Sarah insisting it was Sleepless in Seattle, Marcus arguing for Pretty Woman despite the obvious decade error, and Jennifer just shrugging because she'd been nursing the same cosmos for 2 hours and was 3 sheets to the wind. But my attention had wandered to the man 3 tables over, running fingers through his dark hair with a kind of unconscious elegance that made me wonder if he practiced in mirrors. He was tall, even sitting down, wearing a charcoal suit that probably cost more than my rent, with a 5 o'clock shadow that suggested he was either very busy or very deliberate about his rugged aesthetic. "You've got mail," I called out to my team, never breaking eye contact with the stranger who was now smiling like he'd just figured out my bank pin. The smile was slow, devastating, and entirely too knowing for my own good. I felt my cheeks flush and immediately hated myself for it. "Show off," muttered Sarah, but I was already watching 6 feet of trouble unfold from his chair and move through the crowd like a shark in expensive wool. He had the kind of presence that made conversations pause, the sort of magnetism that cleared a path without him having to ask. Other women tracked his movement with hungry eyes, but his attention remained fixed on our table with laser focus. Christ, he was coming over here. I took a large gulp of gin and tried to remember how to be a functional human being. "I'm Jack," he said when he reached us, voice like whiskey over broken glass. Up close, he was even more dangerous. Dark brown eyes that seemed to see everything, a mouth that promised sin, and the kind of confidence that came from having too much money and knowing exactly how to use it. "And you just cost my team 20 points? Lish." I extended my hand, maintaining the kind of eye contact that made my friends shift uncomfortably in their seats. When his fingers closed around mine, the contact sent electricity shooting up my arm and straight to places that had no business getting excited in a public establishment. "Maybe your team should have spent less time staring at their phones and more time watching Hugh Grant movies. Though I suppose that's asking a lot of grown men." His laugh was rich and genuine, the kind that made me want to hear it again. "We prefer action movies. You know, explosions, car chases, emotional unavailability." He still hadn't let go of my hand, his thumb tracing a small circle against my palm that was making it very difficult to concentrate on witty banter. How refreshingly honest, I managed, my voice sounding steadier than I felt. "Most men just lead with emotional unavailability and skip the entertainment value. I like to be upfront about my flaws. Saves time." His eyes crinkled at the corners when he smiled, suggesting he laughed often. Or maybe he was just practiced at charming women in bars. Either way, it was working. "Buy me a drink, and I'll tell you about my commitment issues over something stronger than gin," I said, surprising myself with my boldness. The fire in my belly was spreading, and I was tired of being careful. Life was short, and this man looked like he could make it infinitely more interesting. A woman who leads with her red flags. I like that, saves time on the disappointment. He signaled the bartender with 2 fingers, somehow managing to get immediate attention despite the crowded bar. Money had its privileges, apparently. 2 hours and several whiskeys later, We'd abandoned our respective teams for a corner booth where neon light painted our skin in alternating shades of electric blue and rose gold. I'd learned that Jack owned 3 restaurants, drove a car worth more than most people's houses, and had the kind of smile that probably got him out of speeding tickets. He'd learned that I was a marketing executive who specialized in making terrible products sound irresistible, had a weakness for expensive shoes I couldn't afford, and possessed what my mother generously called a mouth on me. So, what's your story? I asked, swirling my whiskey and trying not to notice how his fingers looked wrapped around his glass. They were long, elegant, with calluses that suggested he wasn't just a pretty face with a trust fund. Besides being mysteriously wealthy and devastatingly handsome, he leaned back, shadows playing across his angular features. The pub had gotten louder as the night wore on, but our corner felt intimate, separated from the chaos by invisible walls of whiskey and mutual attraction. I'm a widower with a 7-year-old daughter who thinks vegetables are a government conspiracy. I work too much, sleep too little, and according to my therapist, I have intimacy issues. I nearly choked on my drink. Jesus, Jack, most people start with their hobbies. My hobbies include avoiding feelings and collecting vintage wines. I'm too emotionally damaged to enjoy properly. His tone was light, but something flickered behind his eyes, a vulnerability that made my chest tighten unexpectedly. Well, when you put it like that, you sound like a catch. Do you also kick puppies in your spare time? Only on weekends. Thought I have balance. He took a sip of his whiskey, studying me over the rim. What about you? What's a beautiful woman like you doing drinking alone with strangers in bars? I'm not alone. I came with friends, and technically we're not strangers anymore. You've told me about your dead wife and your vegetable-phobic child. That's practically a marriage proposal by modern standards. His laugh was surprised, genuine. Most people get uncomfortable when I mention Emma. Most people are idiots. I leaned forward, drawn by something raw in his expression. How long? 3 years. Car accident. He said it simply, but I caught the way his jaw tightened, the slight pause before he continued. Lucy was 4. She barely remembers her mother, which is somehow worse than if she did. The casual way he delivered devastating information was both impressive and heartbreaking. I recognized the defense mechanism. I'd perfected my own version after my father's affair destroyed our family when I was 16. Some pain was too big to handle straight on. You had to approach it sideways, wrapped in dark humor and emotional distance. That's fucked up, I said quietly. I'm sorry. It is what it is. He shrugged, but his fingers tightened around his glass. Lucy's amazing, though. She's got Emma's laugh and my stubborn streak, which is a dangerous combination. Last week, she convinced her teacher that homework was against her religious beliefs. Smart kid. What religion did she claim? She made one up. Called it funism. The central tenet is that anything boring is morally wrong. I might convert. I found myself smiling despite the heavy turn in conversation. There was something magnetic about the way he talked about his daughter, a fierce protectiveness mixed with genuine pride that made him infinitely more attractive. So you're a single dad, restaurant owner, wine collector, and therapy patient. Any other surprises I should know about? I race cars on weekends. He said it so casually I almost missed it. Of course you do. Because being rich, hot, and emotionally unavailable wasn't enough, you had to add a death wish to the mix. It's not a death wish. It's controlled chaos. There's something pure about it, just you, the machine, and physics. No room for anything else. I understood that more than I cared to admit. I have my own ways of chasing that kind of clarity late nights at the office, punishing workouts, the occasional one-night stand that left me feeling empty but momentarily satisfied. We were both running from something, just in different directions. That's either very zen or very fucked up, I said. I haven't decided which. Why not both? His smile was self-aware, tinged with something that might have been regret. What about you? What's Lish short for? Felicia? But call me that and I'll stab you with my heel. Noted. And what does Felicia but call me Lish do when she's not crushing dreams at trivia night? I make people want things they don't need. Marketing executive for a luxury goods company, I gestured vaguely with my glass, already feeling the whiskey's warm embrace. I'm very good at convincing people that $1,000 handbag will change their lives. Will it? God, no. But it might make them feel better about their failing marriage for a few weeks. I caught his expression and laughed. Too dark? Sorry, occupational hazard. When you spend your days crafting beautiful lies, you start seeing the ugly truth everywhere. I like dark. Pretty lies get exhausting after a while. There was something in the way he said it that made me study his face more carefully. The practiced charm was still there, but underneath it I caught glimpses of something raw, more real. It was the kind of complexity that made smart women make stupid decisions. Tell me something true, I said impulsively. That's a dangerous question. I'm a dangerous woman. He considered this, rolling his whiskey between his palms. The pub was starting to thin out. It was nearly 1 a.m., and even dedicated drinkers were calling it a night. But neither of us made any move to leave. I haven't been with anyone since Emma died, he said finally. Not because I'm still mourning, though. I am, but because I don't know how to be with someone without feeling like I'm betraying her memory. The honesty hit me like a physical blow. I'd expected something lighter, safer. Instead, he just handed me his heart on a silver platter, messy and bleeding and terrifyingly real. I struggled for words that weren't completely inadequate. That's really fucking sad, Jack. Yeah, it is. He met my eyes, and I saw something shift in his expression, a decision being made in real time. Your turn. Tell me something true. I could have said anything. Could have kept things light, surface level, safe. Instead, I heard myself saying, I'm so hungry for someone to touch me, I sometimes lie awake at night, imagining what it would feel like to have someone's hands on my skin again. Not just sex, though God knows I want that too, but real touch. Intimate. Like I matter. The words hung between us like a confession, raw and exposed. I immediately wanted to take them back, but something in Jack's expression stopped me. He was looking at me like he'd just recognized something familiar, something he'd been searching for without knowing it. How long? He asked softly. Since my last relationship, 8 months. Since someone touched me like they meant it? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Longer, much longer. The silence that followed was charged, electric. I could feel the weight of his gaze like a physical thing, tracing the line of my throat, the curve of my lips. The fire that had been simmering in my belly all night roared to life, spreading through my veins like liquid heat. Lish, he said, and my name on his lips sounded like a prayer. Yeah? I think we're both in trouble here, the good kind or the bad kind. His smile was slow, dangerous, full of promise. Definitely the bad kind. I finished my whiskey in one burning gulp, set the glass down with more force than necessary, and made another impulsive decision. Your place or mine? Mine's closer. He was already standing, throwing bills on the table without counting them. Fair warning, though, I haven't done this in a while. I might be out of practice. Lucky for you, I'm an excellent teacher. The walk to his car was a study in sexual tension barely held in check. Every accidental brush of his fingers against mine sent sparks shooting through my system. By the time we reached his car, of course it was a black Porsche, I was practically vibrating with need. Nice car, I said, running my fingers along the sleek hood. Very. Environmentally conscious of you. I contain multitudes, he replied, opening the passenger door for me. Even in the midst of what was clearly going to be a spectacularly bad decision, he was a gentleman. It was simultaneously charming and infuriating. The drive to his place took 15 minutes that felt like hours. The city streamed past us in blurs of neon and shadow, the mild night air carrying the scent of rain and possibility through the open windows. His penthouse was in the financial district, all glass and steel and commanding views of the city skyline. Of course it was. "Drink?" he asked as we stepped into his living room, but his voice was rough, distracted. He was looking at me like I was something he wanted to devour slowly, and every nerve ending in my body responded accordingly. "I think I've had enough alcohol for one night," I said, moving closer to him. "Besides, I don't want to be drunk for this." "For what?" I reached up and traced the line of his jaw, feeling the rasp of stubble against my fingertips. He went very still, his breathing shallow. "For whatever this is about to be." His control snapped like a rubber band stretched too far. One moment we were standing apart, the next his hands were tangled in my hair, and his mouth was crashing down on mine with 3 years' worth of pent-up hunger. I moaned into the kiss, my body coming alive like it had been sleeping for months, and was just now remembering how to feel. His hands were everywhere, sliding down my back, gripping my hips, pulling me against him until there was no space left between us. I could feel his heart hammering against his chest, could taste the whiskey on his tongue as he kissed me like I was oxygen and he'd been drowning. "Bedroom," I gasped against his mouth, and he lifted me without hesitation, my legs wrapping around his waist as he carried me through his apartment. I caught glimpses of expensive art, floor-to-ceiling windows, a kitchen that probably cost more than my car. But all of it was background noise to the feel of his hands on my skin, his mouth on my throat. His bedroom was all dark wood and soft lighting, with a view of the city that would have been breathtaking if I'd been capable of focusing on anything other than the way he was looking at me, like I was something precious and dangerous and entirely too tempting to resist. "Are you sure?" he asked, setting me down gently beside his bed. His hair was disheveled from my fingers, his lips swollen from our kisses, and the sight of him made something primal and desperate claw at my chest. Instead of answering, I reached for the buttons of his shirt, my fingers working with steady determination despite the way my hands were shaking. "I haven't been sure of anything in months," I said, "but I'm sure of this."